Kara, we are now live. Everyone that's out there watching, sorry we're a little bit late. Technical difficulties, but we're here now. So I'm glad we made it, Kara.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here.
We've been here, but we've just had some problems with the technology.
Anyways, I am so delighted to be here today for our premiere episode of Women Who Do, a series that is dedicated to inspiring conversations with women who are making a difference. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessie Gray Rubenstein, and I am Anne Klein's granddaughter. Anne Klein was a trailblazer. She inspired women everywhere, and especially me. So during these challenging times, her message about strength and empowerment is more critical than ever before. So to honor her legacy, we are starting the Women Who Do series to encourage inspiring conversations on career and community as we begin to rebuild. So this leads me to an exciting introduction of our very first guest, Kara Goldin. Kara is
Hello.
Kara is truly the woman that does it all. She's the founder and CEO of Hint. She's a keynote speaker. She launched her own podcast called Unstoppable. And somehow she also manages to be a mom. So Kara, I just have to say, on a personal note, I am a massive Hint fan. I'm literally drinking it right now.
Thank you.
It's stocked in my fridge right now. So thank you for creating my go-to beverage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Kara, this is our first live series, and we are so honored that you're able to join us. We would just love to get started and hear a little bit more about your current initiatives at Hint and how you've pivoted directions during COVID.
Yeah, so we started 15 years ago, actually, this month, and that's when Hint was born. And I think that the key thing for me was really, looking at health and wellness and my own health and wellness. And are you hearing an echo at all?
I'm not.
You're not. Okay. It's just on my end. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that it wasn't annoying everybody with that echo there. Okay, good. So started this company just to try and get myself to drink water because I just was never a water drinker and felt like that was the healthiest thing that I could possibly do if I, gave up my diet soda and started drinking. And I have to say that I think that the one thing that I've seen over the last couple of months out of people is that, health is really important to people. And that may sound like obvious to so many people, but it just never was something that I heard people constantly talking about. And today, on every email or every conversation that I'm having with somebody over Zoom or on the phone, it's like, hope you're doing okay, hope you're well. And people are really focused on, staying well, right? And so I feel like that is kind of the key thing that I've seen during, this COVID time as well is, that it's really just a time where people are, focusing more and more on the health of it. And, I think like the consumer side of this is really, we're just seeing that more and more for how people are ultimately, purchasing our product. And we've always had a direct to consumer business, but we've seen so many more people take advantage of that because they are sheltering in place. So I wouldn't say that it's changed in terms of a, pivot so much for our company. I think it's just been
watching kind of what ultimately the customer is doing.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think during this time, I run a social media agency myself, and there's just, it's a lot of just listening to what the consumer is looking for. And I think all of us, our attitude, how we're approaching just life in general is constantly changing and evolving, and it will only continue to as we, rebuild and get back to hopefully normal life pretty soon.
Totally.
So that leads me to my next question. Throughout your professional journey, who are the women that have inspired you the most?
So I feel like I've really gravitated towards people who have been, builders and people who have kind of taken risks along the way and done things that were sort of the, now we call them disruptive, but I think it's really the unexpected more than anything else. I mean, my mom was an art history major, and went very early to college back in the time when women were not, necessarily doing that. But then decided, after she had spent years in the art world, she decided that she really loved fashion. And at age 40, actually, I think like 42, 43 years old, she decided that she really wanted to, focus on a career in fashion. And she wasn't Anne Klein by any stretch, but she was, she was really, she ended up ultimately doing some buying, and then was there ultimately at this local store in Scottsdale, Arizona, until she was 80. And because she loved what she did and she was passionate about what she did. But I think everybody thought she was like a little bit crazy because she, wanted to go into fashion at 40, which, back then was even like a little old to be making a career decision. And then since then, I feel like, I've really been attracted to people that have kind of taken those chances too, and haven't put, age in front of themselves or experience in front of themselves, but actually led with passion, to really go and do, what they ultimately thought that they wanted to get up every day and really focus on. So a few of them are my advisors, actually, in my company. Leslie Blodgett, who is the founder of Bare Minerals, is one. So many other people. Sonia Perkins, who actually is one of our investors today. She's the founder of Broadway Angels, which is a great financial angel group that invests in women here in San Francisco. She was a venture capitalist years ago, and now she just really decided that she wanted to focus on investing in women. So I would say that those are two people in particular, and then people that actually I can't say that I really know, but I've met. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think, has always been, somebody that I think I got a little weak in the knees when I actually got a chance to meet her, because I just thought on so many levels she's just, really trailblazed and done sort of the impossible, and frankly hasn't cared, right, what other people thought. She just kept going and really had purpose standing, behind her, sort of pushing her forward, which I just think like that kind of stuff is just so admirable.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, Ruth is on my top list too, and I mean, my mom as well. I couldn't agree more. She is my top role model. Of course, along with Anne, I feel lucky as well to have some strong women in my life. Well, that leads me to my next question. So I know you started your career, Kara, as an executive assistant, and you worked your way up the ladder to now being a founder and CEO. So your story is it's so inspirational. So for anyone out there that is shifting the direction of their career, what is your advice to them?
I think it just goes back to something I said a few minutes ago, which was really figuring out, what you can imagine that you would love doing every day, right? Because I think, most people spend a big chunk of their life, working, right? And you might as well do something that you really want to do. I mean, I'm sure, your grandmother thought that too, like, when she was back in the early days of starting. I mean, I think it's just so critical. And yet I don't think people lead with that often. Like, they go and get a job, and, and I think that's okay to go and get a job, but start to figure out, like, what do you like about your job, and then, or your role, whatever you want to call it, and, figure out if it's in the right industry that you want to be in, or, also, frankly, during a pandemic. I mean, start to look at, things that are doing well, things that are a little riskier, right? That kind of mindset. I think you have to sort of put all of that down on a piece of paper to figure out, if that's really kind of the role that you ultimately want to have. And again, I think it just depends on your life too. And my dad was the founder of a brand inside of a large company called Healthy Choice, and he founded it at Armor Food Company, which eventually was eventually acquired by ConAgra. But my dad, as a kid, I used to say, Dad, you should just like go and start your own company. And he really was not kind of the profile to go and take risks. And I couldn't understand it until much later, but he had 5 kids, right? He was like, running this business inside of a larger business. And, that while it seemed kind of obvious to me that maybe he should go and do things, like he also, he honored responsibility. And I think that that's something that people should also look at too. What else do you have going on in your life? Because if you disrupt that apple cart, maybe that's going to make you more stressed out and not really enjoying what you're doing every single day. If you've got to, feed 5 kids and whatever. So I think it's really balancing that, but really looking at everything that, all the different aspects that kind of feed into that.
That's awesome. I mean, those are all things that I try to apply to, I know, my life every day, and that's so helpful. That's awesome. Well, I'd say this kind of goes hand in hand. Like, do you have a specific motto, like a career motto or a life motto that you live by?
I think more and more it's I come back to just try, right? Because I think so many people are afraid of failure. And, if you didn't actually know that word, would you actually go try? Like, I think we put too much focus on, well, I shouldn't go do that because what if it doesn't work? And instead, like, I look back at all of the things that I did that, maybe seemed a little bit, scary. Ultimately, I wasn't sure if they were going to work or not. But even if it doesn't work out exactly the way that you planned, I believe like those things will teach you the next time to, avoid those things or, ultimately learn from them. So I think it just goes back to, just try, because like, no matter what, you're going to figure out lots of different things about yourself, about the business, about just and view it as the journey versus a, cut and dry, like it's either going to work or it's not. It's like, every time I talk to people who maybe had a, situation that didn't work out, I, always push on them to share like, well, what'd you learn from it? And, and everyone has learnings, right? Some people may not want to admit all of those learnings, but those learnings will actually, determine sort of how you lead the next time. So I think it's really, that's such an important aspect.
100%. It's really, I'd say, about the process. And, as you said, it's not the destination that matters. It's, what you experience and what you learn along the way that makes it count.
Totally. Yeah. And it's your blueprint, ultimately. It's like, that is such an important piece of it.
That's amazing. So Kara, as we kind of like move forward, how do you think that this pandemic will shape our economy, our society, and our future in general? And what are you hoping that we learn from this experience?
I think that it really boils down to what the consumer is taking away from this, right? Like, we're all consumers, but I think it's really, do I think that people will shop differently? Yes. I think that, I don't think stores are going away tomorrow, because I think there's still going to be people who like to go into a store. And in the case of apparel, in particular, try things on, but there definitely will be people who are willing to, order something online, and if it doesn't work, return those things too. I think that gone are the days that, if you don't have a website today, I mean, definitely you're feeling it. If you're a small business, as we're opening up and allowing people to do curbside pickup, and you don't have a website right now, that's a lesson. That's a big lesson you should be learning right now, that you got to get, a small little website at minimum up, and be able to merchandise it in some way. I think that also consumers are, over the next couple of months in particular, I think we're just trying to see exactly what happens. But, as people, I feel like people have been putting more focus on health. And I think it's such an interesting, dynamic around consumer, just overall consumer behavior, that it wasn't a doctor that actually, told people to go out and exercise every day during the shelter in place. It was, local officials, or, or in some cases, federal officials that said, okay, we're going to shelter in place. This is our advice. And you can, and you should get outside for like an hour every single day. And most people I know did that. Like, they did it because they felt like, I need to go and just get out of the house. But I don't know, everyone I've talked to has like really appreciated that, right? They weren't obviously going to gyms, but they were, figuring out how to get outside and really like move more than anything. So I think that hopefully will kind of change consumers, behavior more than anything else. And I mean, will they go back to gyms? And, I think that whole industry is going to change significantly. I don't know how it's ultimately going to change, but I think that, regardless, it really goes back to like what the consumer is comfortable, doing. And I hope that they know that every day they need to be doing some kind of exercise.
100%. If it wasn't for trying to fit in yoga or Pilates every day, I think I'd be going a little bit crazy. So thank God that YouTube exists, and there's so many great videos out there. If you have like a go-to routine, like what is your kind of health, wellness, exercise, etc.?
Yeah. So I mean, this was pre shelter in place, but I live in Marin County, where it's about 20 minutes over the Golden Gate Bridge, and I'm always out hiking in my local. I have about 100 acres of trails in the Marin Headlands, and so that's like literally out my back door. Part of the reason why I live where I live is for that, nature element. So I head out around 6 a.m. every morning, and 5:30, 6 a.m. with my Labradors and usually my husband, and we just head out and just get hiking. So I'm hiking like 3 to 5 miles every day,
Wow.
and I really feel like that just sets me good for the day too. It sort of clears my head, and it's super helpful.
Yeah, I live in LA, so when it's a regular day, I also, hiking is the thing that I need. Just get outside, get some views that's not a city view. It really helps to center your day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have some really awesome responses going on in the live chat. I'm just looking through them right now. Let's go to Zoe Weitzman. She asks, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance?
So I think it goes back to just really loving ultimately what you do. And, I think being an entrepreneur is, it sounds like it's a really sexy thing to do. The truth is, no matter what industry, it's hard. It's like, it's a lot of hours. I always tell entrepreneurs, like, there's way easier ways to make money. And so I think it really comes back to you have to love what you do. And, I also work with my husband. So my husband hopped into my dream, or like right at the beginning. And he was an attorney prior to this, and had, was in tech like I was. I was at AOL for years. And I think for, a lot of people ask us like how we work together, and they could never do that. I think it just depends on your relationship, and it depends on, your skill set as well. But for us, it's totally worked. I mean, we have 4 kids, and we lead with really like thinking about not only how we can live a healthier lifestyle, but also our family live a healthier lifestyle. And ultimately, how do we help people to live a healthier lifestyle? So, just going back to, this balance, I think it's really, you have to start with doing something that you really believe has purpose and that you're helping people. And I hear back from consumers, every other day about how, Hint is really helping them to drink water or control their type 2 diabetes or other types of health related issues. And I mean, that's just a really powerful statement, especially as a, CEO and as a founder, to hear that like from your consumers. So I think if you can if you can work with a company that really has kind of the consumer feedback like that, it's just such a great, uplifting push for you to be able to, keep going.
100%. Actually, it's funny because my New Year's resolution this year was to drink more water, because I was one of those people where it would be 5 o'clock and I'd be like, why do I have the worst migraine in the world? And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I had 0 water today, and I wasn't drinking it because I like fruity drinks. And so this Hint has really helped me kind of drink more water, but also ditch the, not so good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that's the case all the time that we hear from people. They're like, they just have this epiphany, and oftentimes it's, like they're not feeling well in some way. And, they start to think about things like, I mean, dehydration is so like, people think that dehydration is, you're going to collapse or something. You might, but there's a few signs before that are, so critical. And, I don't know, I think on sort of a bigger kind of purpose level, I'm working on some stuff in Washington right now around clean water. Like, I think that the idea of, water, I used to tell people that, all roads lead back to, water, that if you can ultimately drink water, there's a lot of things that, get solved, right? Like, I believe that weight issues will change. They may not be 100% fixed, but skin issues, headaches, there's lots of things that can be changed. Unfortunately, a lot of our water supply is not as clean, and certainly not in, in various parts of the world, but also in the US. And part of the issues that I'm hopefully going to be taking to Congress soon is around lead and PFAS and some other stuff that is hidden in our drinks that, the average consumer thinks, oh, I live in, San Francisco, I live in Los Angeles, I live in New York, I live wherever. And, I can turn on the tap and it looks clear and it doesn't smell. And so it must be fine. And the reality is that there's a lot of stuff that is, in our water that we can't see or smell or taste. That ultimately, has proven health risks. And I think it's not okay that we are not knowing about those things and ultimately, aren't having them removed from our water supply. So it's a big initiative that, with everything else going on in Washington right now, has been held up a bit. But I'm working with Congresswoman Jackie Speer on this initiative, and we're hoping that we can get it before Congress, hopefully this summer.
That's so amazing. I know, I mean, I'm definitely guilty of just grabbing a glass of tap, even though I have a Brita in the filter. So it's so important to remember that. But that sounds incredible. And I can't wait to, hopefully hear more once things calm down a bit. I think we have time for one more question. Let's see. Brett Copel asks, what is some advice on how to be more innovative when there is so much competition in the marketplace?
So I think there's two different types of entrepreneurs, and maybe more, but the way I see it is there are entrepreneurs that are really focused on kind of going after the competition and adding a product to a category that exists already, maybe tweaking it slightly. That has never been the type of entrepreneur that I am. I'm more likely to look at like where is the white space, where is the problem not being solved, and that was really what I did for water. We not only developed a product, the first unsweetened flavored water, but also like I had no idea that it wasn't a category, which is a whole other, sort of reason why, 15 years later, we're, still growing because it's, when we went into grocery stores, a lot of grocery stores, the comments back in the early days of me launching this product were, we're like, you're not even a category. I mean, there's no other competition out there. So we don't really have space for you on the shelves. So that's really hard, I think, for entrepreneurs to hear. And there's, to some extent, you have to, look at your timing as potentially, when you don't have competition, then, it'll just be harder for you to just keep going and keep building. But I think that, the core thing is being able to, I go back to purpose, and I think really understanding the reason why you're doing something. And if you don't have a purpose today, I think that, it's not that you can't go and develop a product in a category, a crowded category, but it'll just take you a lot more money. And I think that, again, like there are entrepreneurs that do that. I think that if your end game is to flip your company and get it, sold as quickly as possible, there are numerous entrepreneurs that will tell you that it takes a lot longer to do that, and maybe you won't be successful, especially with all the competition out there. So I think being innovative around a category that is, doesn't have that much competition in it, but also you can define in just, 15 seconds, not even 30 seconds, exactly what you're trying to solve for.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it all goes back to what you said earlier. You gotta kind of A, risk it for the biscuit, and B, just truly be super creative. Well, Kara, thank you again for joining us today for our very first episode of Women Who Do. This has been so amazing. I know I learned so much. I'm glad that we finally worked through all those, tech issues, and we made it here today. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm on Kara Goldin with an I, if on all social channels, if you want to reach out. And for those of you who haven't tried Hint, it's at drinkhint.com or available also in lots of stores.
I know you'll be getting a lot of DMs. We have some awesome responses going on right now in the live chat. Well, everyone who is out there listening, remember to tune in next week on Facebook Live for episode 2 of Women Who Do with Dr. Lori Santos. She's a Yale professor, a TED speaker, and she's the host of the Happiness Lab. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kara. Take care, everyone.